I usually have a hard time finishing shows, at least when it comes to shows that have a ton of seasons and episodes, and finishing a full season or series rewatch of Ninjago is no different. But there's one season that I could watch over and over again and always get hooked and fully immersed every single time, and that season is Tournament of Elements. Now, praise for the season isn't new. I'm sure you've already seen plenty of videos covering why this season is so good, but I just want to talk about some aspects of the season that I find are often overlooked. And those aspects are really what make Tournament such a fun season to watch. For me, I view Tournament of Elements as the most bingeable Ninjago season. And what I love about it is how it feels so specifically crafted to entice the audience and make them wonder at the end of every episode, what is going to happen next? But that's just basic TV show 101, right? And yeah, hooking and enticing your audience so that they are encouraged to watch more and more episodes is arguably the most important part of making a good TV show, but you'd be surprised how much this aspect is overlooked. Yes, most serialized shows have cliffhangers and mystery to keep you watching. For Ninjago, this wasn't particularly new, but the way Tournament handles its mystery, stakes, and drama makes the season work in a way that no other season of Ninjago had before and has even since. So let me explain what I mean by this. How do these elements make Tournament so enjoyable to binge? Tournament of Elements from the start has a super interesting premise that acts as a super solid core for the story. The ninja are invited to participate in a tournament of elements in order to find their lost ninjoid friend. On the island are a ton of other elemental masters who seek fame and riches for winning the tournament. But there's more to the island than meets the eye. Ninjago usually has pretty typical premises that are boosted by their characters. Most seasons see the ninja protecting Ninjago from some sort of evil force, usually with some kind of fetch quest involved. And this season admittedly does kind of turn into that by the end, but for the majority of its runtime, we have a more unconventional plot for Ninjago that is held up by more than just the characters and set pieces, but by the actual premise of the season. Yes, the character work is still amazing here, and I'll get into that in a bit, but the focus isn't on anyone specific, nor is it on the team as a whole. The focus is on the situation, the tournament itself. The season is unique in structure, with each episode slowly unraveling more of the mystery behind Chen and the island, as the dynamics between the characters are always shifting. It's almost structured as if it's some kind of reality TV show, creating tension and intrigue through its clever use of drama. Dynamics are never set in stone, they're always being challenged as more information is brought to the table. Chen acts as a great instigator, challenging previously established dynamics, and sometimes even highlighting character conflicts from previous seasons like with Cole and Jay. The tournament setup allows for all this to take place as Chen and the ever-evolving mystery constantly challenge character dynamics and keep the story moving forward, as more of the contestants are knocked out. And that right there is another really intriguing part of the season, the fact that we're slowly losing characters over the course of the story, which is great at both building up tension and making us grow more attached to some of these side characters. Of course, these characters never leave the story for good, but their departure from the narrative is felt, especially when it's somebody from the main cast. All these elements combined create a really unique Ninjago season that offers a variety of entertaining characters, shifting dynamics, high stakes, and intriguing mystery. So let us dive into how Tournament of Elements makes for such a captivating and compelling season of TV. Tournament of Elements wastes no time introducing you to its concepts and characters. The first episode immediately does a great job setting up the tone of the season while also giving an idea of how certain character dynamics would play out. Take this interaction between Kai and Skylar for example. Kai heading into this tournament is already showing off his tendencies to want to prove himself to those around him. He tries to stand up for Skylar by fighting Karloff, which only escalates the situation and sets up a rivalry that would be important in the next episode. Skylar appears to be put off by Kai's actions, but still acts nice towards him in order to trick him into gaining his powers. This scene acts as a good way to show the dissonance between the ninja and the other elemental masters while setting up Kai's dynamic with Skylar. We also see this with how Klaus greets Garmadon. We see a variety of dynamics pre-established before the tournament even starts, which acts as a good way to give the audience a taste of how the tournament will play out. while at the same time introducing us to a brand new cast of Elemental Masters. In episode 2, we get a proper introduction of the tournament, as well as a good idea of how the tournament will play out. Each Elemental Master gets their own room, which creates this false sense of security. And, while it's obvious that something sinister is going on, the answer to what it could be is left vague, with Chen avoiding to clarify what would happen when someone loses the tournament. We also get another scene with Kai and Skylar, which builds upon what we saw of them from before. Kai, of course, tries to impress her with Skylar acting nice in return, presumably in order to gain his trust. She also doesn't tell Kai her powers, which adds another unsolved mystery to the mix about what her powers could be. The scene demonstrates what I find so compelling about a lot of the character interactions in Tournament of Elements. We have a one-sided relationship here where Kai is fooled into thinking he is actually bonding with Skylar, causing him to trust her despite the fact that she is holding information about her powers from him, insinuating some deeper motivation here that Kai is of course blind to due to his infatuation with her. And while most of the stuff is missed on a first watch, it's really interesting in retrospect. And for a first time viewing, it leaves you wondering what Skylar's true motives are. And speaking of mystery, we also get hints at Garmadon's past with Chen, giving the audience even more info to wonder and speculate about. So not even halfway through episode 2, we have the mystery on why Zane is being held on the island, what happens when a contestant loses, what Skylar's power is, and what Garmadon's past with Chen is, all of which are unraveled during the single season. With that many interesting setups, it's hard for somebody not to find at least one mystery interesting enough to want to keep watching. It's a big part of what makes Tournament so engaging, and it keeps you hooked wanting the answers to all these questions. It sets everything up so naturally and efficiently. Then we get our first taste of the tournament itself with a race to find the Jade Blades. This sequence is not only a fun and varied action sequence, but it also feels more meaningful than most Ninjago action sequences, and that's because of the difference in stakes. In most Ninjago seasons, the stakes are as simple as the ninja possibly getting captured or letting the villain make progress towards their evil plan. But here, if one of the ninja loses, they are knocked out of the tournament, which makes everything feel a lot more tense. And this sequence in particular is really well done because it immediately pits everyone against each other at once, showing how fast those in the tournament are willing to turn on each other in order to stay in the game. And back to Skylar and Kai, we see how easily Skylar can manipulate Kai into helping her, building off the scene from before. And we of course end this first match of the tournament with a showdown between Karloff and Kai, with Kai demonstrating how playing fair isn't necessarily what the tournament is all about. And with Karloff being knocked out, the stakes from losing the tournament become even more apparent than ever. Like I've mentioned before, Tournament does a great job setting up both its mysteries and stakes, but it wouldn't take long before we started getting some answers. Something I've realized when it comes to telling a compelling story is that with every answer you give, a new question must come along with it until that mystery has reached its natural conclusion. For example, in Tournament of Elements, it doesn't take long for us to learn that Skylar can indeed use fire. But upon this realization, we as the audience are now wondering, how can she use fire? Is she related to Kai? In what way would she be related? What was a simple mystery about Skylar's powers has now evolved into something far more interesting with just one small piece of new information. And this new info also changes the previously established dynamic between Kai and Skylar that I went into detail in previously. And this isn't the only instance of this within the season. As the ninjas sneak their way through the island, we get to see what happens after Karloff lost. His powers are drained away by Chen as he is taken to work in the noodle factory. But with these answers comes an even bigger new question as to why he would be stealing powers in the first place, while also hinting at the factory, which his role is unknown at this point. And the cliffhanger at the end with Klaus adds an extra added layer to the story, as the ninja have now become big targets in the tournament. At least bigger targets than they were before. And with that, the ninja are pitted against each other, with Jay and Cole having to face off in the tournament. But in a crazy twist of fate, Tournament takes one of Rebooted's biggest weaknesses and turns it into one of this season's biggest strengths. With Jay and Cole being at odds with each other, it greater highlights the destructive power of the tournament, as it is all too easy for it to tear relationships apart and break trust between its contestants. So having to see the ninja overcome that is really interesting to witness. We also see the ninja make their first ally in the tournament, enlisting Nero to help find out what Chen is planning, adding yet another interesting bit of info to the mix. Nero's mind ability allows him to see into Klaus's mind and he learns that Chen is collecting powers for a spell. And I'm sure you can start to see how tournament structures a lot of its story. Big questions are set up, and as they're answered, they bring up even more smaller questions, making each reveal more interesting than the last. And while that's all happening, character dynamics are being introduced and challenged. This constant stream of questions and reveals is a huge part of what makes Tournament of Elements so addicting to watch. You're always left wanting to know more. But the other big part of what makes Tournament so engaging are the characters. So something I mentioned before in the video a bunch already is how important the character dynamics are in the season, but I think it's the relationship between the ninja and the other elemental masters that I find most interesting. The ninja find themselves to be quite isolated from the other masters from the start. Of course, from the beginning, everyone is there to fight, but as time goes on and the ninja realize Chen's true intentions, we start to see them make alliances with the elemental masters. First, it starts with Nero, like I mentioned before, but soon they're able to convince almost everyone of Chen's evil plans. But here's where things start to get interesting, as Chen is able to make the alliance crumble by informing the elemental masters that whoever wins will get the Staff of Elements, creating a divide between those who trust the ninja and those who trust Chen. The setting of the tournament allows for really interesting scenarios where trust and greed plays a huge role in the dynamics between these characters. And with the introduction of a possible spy being added to the mix, it throws an even bigger wrench into things while also building even more mystery like I was talking about before. I relate it to reality game shows in a way, where players are pitted against each other, creating friendships or enemies, with the status of those relationships being able to change at any second. It's a big part of why reality TV is so popular. So using that advantage to establish and enhance the story being told here is genius in my opinion. And I think the character that best demonstrates this approach to storytelling is Skylar. Skylar is both my favorite and least favorite character in Tournament because I think she represents both the best and worst aspects of the season. The best aspects of the season are everything that I've been mentioning throughout this entire video, the fantastically delivered mystery and intriguing character dynamics, and drama, with the bad elements being the direction the story takes in its final few episodes. When rewatching Tournament for this video and paying special attention to the character interactions, I realized how much depth Skylar truly has in the first half or so of the season. Each interaction she has with Kai is filled with these small tricks she pulls in order to gain Kai's trust. She's constantly putting up a front to get Kai on her side, but here's the thing that Skylar fans may not want to hear. Skylar is great here in my opinion because she's a villain. Skylar isn't falling for Kai here. In fact, she seems to be visibly put off by a lot of his actions, and honestly, I don't blame her. Kai in most of these interactions is so full of himself, thinking that his awful attempts at flirting are working. But that's what Skylar wants. Skylar acts as if she's into him to gain his trust. She strings him along so she can manipulate him into getting his own friends out of the tournament. In the roller derby, she is constantly tempting Kai, telling him how he could win it all if he simply got Lloyd out. She wants him to go along with Chen's plan because, as we learn later of course, she's working for him, and even his daughter. And I love this because it's completely believable for Kai to fall for these tricks, and while most viewers may be slightly suspicious, these scenes are written in a way where someone could just interpret them as Skylar wanting to win, and being unaware of Chen's true motives. Especially since when Chen's motives are revealed to everyone, she goes along with it, giving Kai the fortune cookie and even acting insulted when Kai tries to see if she's the spy. Every action she takes here is an attempt to keep her trust with him stable, so he sabotages the other ninja and gets everyone's powers taken. There is no chemistry here. Kai's advances aren't working. This pairing shouldn't be plausible, which is why it's so disappointing to see where the season goes after this. Kai eventually finds out Skylar is the spy, and from here on out things take a huge shift. Now Skylar isn't some scheming villain working for the enemy, but merely a love interest for Kai, as well as kind of a plot device for Chen's plan. This new version of Skylar is far less interesting to me. In the first half or so of the season, Skylar is full-on antagonistic, working for Chen and playing mind games with Kai at every turn. She is smart and strategical, she's manipulative, and she puts on a facade to try and trick and tempt our heroes. You know, now that I'm saying all this, she almost reminds me of someone else. But I really think that this was Skylar in her most interesting form, and she really highlights here how good some of the character interactions are within the season. Seeing all this great character work be taken away in favor of pairing her with Kai is just so disappointing to me. And it doesn't help that she really doesn't have any form of arc going on from point A to point B. I don't believe for a second that she would actually fall for Kai with the way he acts towards her in the season. I don't see any realistic bond there. But the main reason I bring this whole thing up is because I think it highlights Tournament of Elements' fatal flaw. I have touched on all the aspects that make Tournament of Elements such an addicting and captivating season to watch. It presents its story in a way that keeps you wanting more, with every answer leaving even more questions to ponder. It gets you invested in its stakes, with characters being ejected from the tournament, and keeps things interesting with its ever-changing character dynamics and drama. But all that stuff hinges on the tournament premise. So once the tournament ends and the season still has like 3 episodes left, it kind of falls apart. The plot itself is still pretty solid, but the season loses a lot of what it had going for it and turns into a pretty basic Ninjago story. Remember all the interesting dynamics between the ninja and elemental masters? Well, they're all kind of just best buds now. Remember all the mystery and intrigue? Yeah, well, everything is pretty cut and dry from here on out with not a lot of big twists. Besides Garmadon's sacrifice, I'd say everything pretty much plays out exactly how you would expect. Not to say the ending of the season is terrible, but it just kind of feels like a huge downgrade from the rest of the season. The season is most interesting to me when it uses the advantages of its less conventional plot and delivers in telling a super interesting and unpredictable story. Does the final few episodes ruin the season? Definitely not, but it keeps it from being as incredible as it could be. And as for characters like Skylar, it robs them of what they could have been. And I know that's probably going to be an unpopular take, but it's genuinely how I feel. All in all, Tournament of Elements is still a great season and has some of the best writing I've seen from Ninjago, and I don't think that we'll get anything like it ever again. It truly took advantage of the unique aspects the tournament plot provides, and used it to deliver Ninjago's most bingeable season. There's a lot I would change about the second half, if I could, but overall it's a great season that really shows the strengths of Ninjago and its characters. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was really fun to revisit Tournament of Elements as it is one of my favorite seasons. And in the process of making this video, I discovered a lot of really interesting things about it, so hopefully that made for a fun video. Though for this video, I did try to keep it pretty contained and focus on the stuff that I loved and maybe didn't like so much, but I'd love to do a more in-depth video covering the season as a whole, as more of a long-form style video similar to my crystallized one, if you guys are interested. So let me know in the comment section below if you guys would like to see me do that with Tournament of Elements or any other season that you all would like to see me cover. In terms of what the next video will be though, I'll be covering the Monkey Kid Season 4 special as has been highly requested. I also want to remind you guys that I am indeed streaming right here on YouTube. I just started my new stream series on Shadow of Ronin, so be sure to check those out if you're interested. And I also plan to do even more tier list streams in the future with some really awesome guests. But yeah, that'll be about it for this video. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.